This is the SAU Report, a program featuring interviews with the faculty, staff, students, and alumni of Southern Arkansas University in Magnolia.
Welcome to the SAU Report. I'm Jeff Grissom.
I'm Shannon Watson.
Today we're talking with the Southern Arkansas University Communications Center, and we have Judy Post, who is the director, and Mark Trout, who is the editor.
Thank you, Jeff. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes. Mark Trout's the university editor. Ms. Post, I'm going to start it out with, how long have you been here at SAU?
Well, I have been at SAU since October of 1995, but I've been with the SAU system for 11 years. I was at SAU, what used to be SAU El Dorado, before coming to Southern Arkansas University in Magnolia.
I see. And you, Mr. Trout?
I've only been here 2.5 years myself. I came here in January 1996 after teaching high school for a few years. So it's been a great place for me to work.
Okay, Ms. Post, how did you get into communications and the Communications Center here at SAU?
Well, when I finished college, I worked at a 2-year school in Enterprise, Alabama, and I was the public relations person there. And then I moved to El Dorado, and there they didn't have a public relations person, and so I took the job as director of financial aid. And then when the job came open here, I applied and was hired here, and I'm really happy to be back in the marketing and public relations area.
Okay, and you, Mr. Trout?
Well, it's kind of a funny question you should ask. In high school, I started out, I wanted to be a DJ, on radio, and so my whole, in high school, my senior year, I'm thinking I want to become a DJ and work in radio. So once I went to Henderson, I took some radio classes and took some communication classes, and I got a job at a local radio station. And I kind of worked my way through college at the radio station, which was kind of nice when my friends are working at McDonald's or whatever, sacking groceries or whatever. I'm sitting in an air-conditioned place, But when I got out of college, I decided to major in English, and an English major without a teaching degree, you're kind of like in trouble sometimes. So once I was finished college, I'm kind of looking for a job, but I'm still working at the radio station. And we have this thing called, swap shop. I don't know if you've ever heard of something like that, but basically it's like a trading post on the radio, and I'm sitting there talking about, milking goats for sale for $10 each or whatever. And I'm thinking, I've got a college degree, and I'm talking about this kind of stuff. I've got to find a job somewhere. So I wanted to stay in communications, and I was lucky enough to get a job in Nashville, Arkansas, at a newspaper. And I worked there for about a year. And then after that, I decided to get into teaching. And I taught speech and English for a little while. And then I found out about the opening here at SAU, and one of my friends told me, you ought to apply for this job, university editor. And I read about it, and then, they classified it in the newspaper, and it sounded interesting, a lot of radio work, some newspaper work, a lot of writing and that kind of stuff. And so I applied for the job, and I didn't think I'd get it, because once you get into teaching, it's kind of sometimes hard to get out. And so I got an interview, and they called me down here to come to work, and I didn't know exactly what I'd be doing. And my wife Tracy says, well, let me know all about it. So I come down to SAU for the interview, which was about 2 hours from where I lived. And Judy interviewed me, and several other people interviewed me. And I went back home, and my wife said, well, how did it go? And I said, good, it went real well. And she said, well, what would you be doing? And I said, I really don't have any idea. And that's kind of, it. That's kind of the way it is in media. I'm sure you all have had that experience, that, every day is a little bit different. And it's real fortunate if you don't like doing the same things every day, because each day, one day I might be doing something for the radio, one day I might be writing a story, one day it might be a feature story. Every day is something different, and I've been very fortunate to get this job at SAU.
Good. Ms. Post, I have a question that I'm sure everyone wants to know. What areas does the Communications Center cover?
We have 3 areas in the center. The first is a copy center, which faculty, staff, and students, and the public are able to use our copy center. We have large copy machines in Nelson Hall, and then we have about 20 satellite copiers located across the campus. And our area takes care of all of the copy codes and everything like that. And we make copies for every department in the university, and we do things like folding, stapling, run tests. We do everything like that in the copy center of the Communications Center. The second area is course, media relations that Mark has already told you a little bit about. We do the news releases, the faculty staff bulletin, any kind of internal and external communication comes through that office. And then our third area is in the area of publications and word processing. Not so much word processing anymore. We have now have a graphic artist on staff full-time, and we feel like we're making some real strides in our publications. We've had some really nice new looks coming out, and we have several new looks coming out for the fall semester.
Okay, you talked about copying and running off tests for teachers or the faculty or professors here at Southern Arkansas. What precautions are taken for the security of those tests, that it doesn't get out all over campus? Or
When a faculty or staff person brings in a test, a full-time faculty, full-time staff member at the communications center takes the test and runs it off, and then we lock the test up until the faculty or staff member comes to pick it up. Sometimes it'll just be a few copies, and they can wait for the copies to be run. Otherwise, we'll lock it up, and it'll only be given back to them or to the person that picks up the test for that faculty or staff member. So we take every precaution to make sure that security of the test is taken.
That's good to know. That's Mark, I have a question. What exactly does a university editor do?
Well, like I said before, it's a little bit of everything. It's really the dream job for somebody that enjoys working, in media, in communications. Just kind of a typical day. I try and reserve my mornings for writing. I seem to think a little bit better in the mornings, and so I try and write in the mornings, and then do like editing in the afternoon, or make changes, or write commercials in the afternoon. But there's a lot more to it than just doing news releases. A lot of people come in and maybe they've got some kind of special program in Texarkana or something. And so they come to me and they say, how can we get this publicized in Texarkana? And so, having lived in Southwest Arkansas for a while, I kind of know different people, who to call at the newspaper, maybe the different radio stations, which radio stations I think might publicize it, which will not. And we just kind of go from there. Each situation is a little bit different, but no one day is exactly like any other day. Each day is going to be a little bit different.
Okay, the Communication Centers works with the internet, and Ms. Post, if you could tell us a little bit how they're with the internet and what they do, and the web page, or what's going on with the internet.
Okay. We actually have two websites. We have an intranet, which is an on-campus website for students, faculty, and staff. And then we have, of course, our university website, which can be accessed by anyone on the World Wide Web. And our address is www.saumag.edu. And we are in the process right now of updating our internet and intranet site to make it more appealing and more user-friendly. So in the fall, we'll have a new site on our internet that will have things like the class schedule, a faculty and staff directory, an easy lookup directory for faculty and staff. We have web pages for students, faculty, and staff. We have departmental pages. We'll just have a whole new look for the fall semester on our internet and on our intranet. The intranet is, as I said, is only accessed by our students, faculty, and staff, and it has all sorts of things like forms, and if a faculty member would like to put a syllabus on there, a student could access that syllabus. And actually what we're hoping is that one day it'll cut down on some of the copies that we make in the copy center. We can save a few trees along the way, and students will be able to have access to syllabus and all sorts of copies now that will be electronic.
Okay, is there any chance of getting any real video or real audio in the future on the intranet or the intranet?
Yes, technology is moving so fast in that area. For the fall, we are not planning to have any audio or video. Or If we do, it'll be very little. But we are moving in that direction, and some of the larger websites, some of the larger universities already have video and audio, and we will be moving, in that direction. But we're taking tiny steps right now, but we do feel like that our website will be very appealing, and we hope that everyone will look us up.
Good advertisement. All right, Mr. Trout, do you have something to add about the intranet?
Well, the internet, I don't do a lot of work with either the internet or the intranet. My main contribution would be the faculty staff newsletter.
Okay.
And the faculty staff newsletter is something we have that comes out once a week during the fall and spring semesters. And basically, it's a newsletter aimed at the faculty and staff on the SAU campus. Hence the name. We got basically what I do is I take like a big news release that I've had recently, and I'll use that as the feature story. And maybe there'll be a picture that'll go along with that. And then on the rest of the newsletter is maybe small tidbits, a professor who attends a conference or presents a paper, or somebody who got something published, an article or a book, something published like that. Or some upcoming events. We have a lot of events on campus that I try and publicize and let people know about. Or special classes, continuing education classes are coming up all the time, and I try and let not only the people in the community know about that, but also the people on campus who a lot of times are interested in some of the classes, like a chess class we've got coming up, a computer class maybe that's coming up that they'd like to take, swimming or tennis, anything like that you wouldn't normally take during the semester, but you could take it for a couple of weeks.
Okay, moving right along here with the Southern Arkansas University Communications Center. Ms. Trout, is the Communications Center, is it open to the public as well as just on campus, or is it anybody, or who all can come and get things done there?
It is open to the public as well as to our faculty, staff, and students. We have many organizations and clubs and businesses even from off campus that come, and sometimes they want us to actually make a program for them, and will just bring us a handwritten copy, and then we'll actually do the word processing on it and then make the copies for them. Or sometimes they'll bring it and it'll be ready for us to copy. Sometimes it needs to be bound or folded, or sometimes it needs to be hole punched. But we've done some really nice things for people in the community. We've done some things for CCAPS, which is Columbia County Animal Protection Society. We've done some things for some human service areas. So we do all kinds of copy center or print type jobs for the public as well as our students, faculty, and staff.
Okay. Moving along also, could you tell me a little about the signage? What is the signs?
I've been fortunate to be the chair of the signage committee for this year, and we have are really doing we'll make the campus have a really different look when students come back in the fall. We will have several banner type signs that will be directional. As I'm sure you know, right now there are no directional type signs on campus, and when a visitor comes to our campus, it's sometimes hard to find a building. There are names on all the buildings, but sometimes they're in the inside mall area and a little bit hard to find when you're trying to find a parking spot. So we will have the banner type signs with directions, and we'll also have 4 large "You Are Here" type signs, and those will be located. One will be in the mall area. We will have 3 others on the entrances to our campus. And someone could stop there and find out where the buildings are by number, and then as they go down the street, then they will be able to see the directional signs to the buildings.
Okay, Mark, you're the editor, the university editor. We know you've done the faculty bulletin, and what other kind of publications do you do with maybe a directory or any of that type?
Well, I don't do any directories. I help, I mean, basically anything that you see printed on campus, a lot of times I've had my hand on that at one time. It may have been just somebody sent it over to me and asked me to read over it and, see how it looks. Or it could be, a lot of times people send over, basically I do like 3 kinds of news releases, I call it. One is people send me stuff, and they say, we want to get this in the paper. Maybe it's an upcoming event. Maybe they've been to, Kalamazoo, Michigan or something, and they want to talk about that. They want to get a little publicity for the school and for themselves as well. And then another thing is maybe if there's an upcoming event, I'll try and interview the person who's in charge of it here at SAU, or the person who's coming to speak or is putting on the show or whatever. And that, that gives me a chance to meet a lot of people that I wouldn't have a chance to meet in any other occupation, As a journalist, you get that opportunity like you two are getting to interview us now. I'm obviously not the most famous people hopefully you'll ever get to interview, but you get to meet a lot of interesting people, and that's what I get to do. And then finally, the third type of press release or story I do is kind of a feature story where somehow somebody will tell me about something or somebody special, something going on, and I'll just kind of take it from there and I'll start turning it over in my mind. How can I approach this? How can I make it interesting for the public? How can I make SAU look good with this? And then I'll go and interview the person, and I'll interview maybe people that are associated with, if it's a student, I'll interview maybe some of his professors. If it's a student working out in the community, I might interview, the person he's working for. Just, anything to get more background for the story. So basically, I kind of do those 3 types of stories. That's mostly what my day is I try and concentrate most of my time on my writing. Some of it, people have signs they want to send out, not signs like this, but maybe a little flyer that somebody wants to send out. And they send it to me and they say, can you look over this and make sure it sounds okay? Can you read over it and make sure that, the grammar is okay? Or I'm thinking, you don't want me looking over this grammar. If only they knew the truth. But I look over it and, I kind of, stick the commas in where I think they need to go and make sure it sounds good. And not only good, but make it sound concise. And it's so easy when you're writing something and you're close to it to not make it understandable. And when you got that objective eye, it's easier to kind of, make it a little bit more concise and a little bit easier to understand. So I try and do that for people. And also I help with, like right now I'm helping with the sports department, sports information department, with the upcoming football season. Doing what they call the football program that people can buy at the Mule Rider football games, and it can consist of the football team, information about that, information about the basketball teams, the upcoming baseball season, also about the the new softball team, swimming team, all that kind of stuff, and I help put that together. So it's a little bit of everything.
Now, Mark, do you take care of business cards also, is that right?
Business cards, yes. We, I keep trying to tell people I don't do business cards, and they keep calling me back. I can't seem to get away from it. But about 4 times a year, we do business cards. Every card here on campus, if you're with the university, needs to look consistent, needs to look the same. So they call me, and they say, Mark, we need some cards. I think, oh gosh, not more cards. And that's what happened this summer, as a matter of fact. I'd just done some in the spring. And when I say do some, I don't do any unless I can do about 20 or 30 cards at once. Because the more cards you have, it brings the cost down, and I try and save money. And I'm thinking, maybe I need to do 2 or 3 cards for people. Well, I put out something on the email, and lo and behold, I get about 20 or 30 people, responding to it. So I have to put together, and not only do I put together the card, do the layout and make sure the information's right, but I also have to get bids on it. And by bids, we have to call up different printers and say, I've got so many cards I'm going to be sending to you. And you'd be surprised at the differences in prices that come your way. I mean, you would not believe we'll have some prices that are real low and some that are real high, and you just don't know what to expect. And each time it's different. And you're wondering what are they basing these prices on? It's like, what side of the bed did they get up in the morning? And that's how they get their prices. But that's basically what the business card is, just kind of a public relations piece for each professor, each staff member on campus.
Of course, being a state agency, we have to get bids and take the low bid, so we usually get 3 bids for printing. So by the time you get all of the bids in and then get the lowest one, it takes a little time, and sometimes we're always in a rush to get something printed. As I'm sure you know, in public information and publications, you're always under a deadline. And we stay under a deadline all the time in the communications center, either in the copy center or in our publications area or in our media relations area.
That's true, especially with upcoming press releases. If you've got, let's say, the Murphy Lecture, which is a popular lecture here on campus that's put on by the School of Business. Well, I know it's coming up, 2 months in advance, and it's time to start getting out publicity. Then you can't wait until the week before, and you kind of have to plan, which releases you want to do and where you want them to go and how often you want them to be out, because you can't have them out too soon, because people will forget, but you can't wait until the last minute either. So you need to have, kind of plan your publicity as you go along. But at the same time, some people don't always understand exactly what's going on, and they'll wait until, 2 days before an event. Can you get this in the paper? Well, I don't know about that. I'll see what I can do. Some people seem, they think you can get it in there, and I don't always have that editorial decision. I can't always get something in the Banner News or El Dorado News Times or Camden News. It's, a decision of each individual paper, whether they'll run a press release or not.
So speaking of working with the papers, I guess you probably work with the Bray a lot and also with the papers in Magnolia, or not?
That's kind of a funny question. I don't do much with the Bray, the SAU paper. I'll send them the same press releases I send to other papers, but the Bray is an independent newspaper here on campus, and they make their own editorial decisions, just like the Banner does here in town, Camden News, El Dorado News Times. The advantage I have that maybe someone else just coming into the job might not have is I have worked in communications in Southwest Arkansas. I know people at newspapers in this part of the state. I know people at radio stations in this part of the state. So a lot of times I can call someone up and say, we've got this, how are you doing? What's going on? Oh, how are your kids doing? I know them. I can talk to them for a few minutes, and they'll say, we've got this coming up. Can you get it in the paper for us? And most of the time they're willing to work for you. Most of these small town papers, they're looking for local news, and they're willing to work with you as long as you give them the information in a timely manner, as long as you'll make it readable for them. If you send them stuff that's full of grammatical errors that they can't make heads or tails, they're not going to spend a lot of time trying to correct your mistakes. You've got to send it out and make it readable for them right then. And so it's always, for me, it's kind of a tough choice, because as a writer, as a journalist, I want to make it interesting on one part. That writer in me wants to make it really, have that tough story, but then the other part of me, I have to promote SAU. So it's, I've got to balance the two, and it's challenging. It really is.
So on a different subject, does the Communications Center deal with photography? Any?
Yes, I'll let Mark
I'll
answer
take
that.
that question. In addition to writing, I take a lot of pictures for publicity, and our graphic artist, Brian Alexis, also does photography. His pictures are usually more for publications like the View Book, the SAU View Book that's coming out, SAU catalog, any kind of brochures we have going out. Mostly his pictures are for that. Every once in a while I'll say, Brian, can you go take a picture for me? And he doesn't ever want to hear that, but he'll do it for me most of the time. Most of my pictures are, people standing up, holding a plaque, shaking hands, that kind of stuff. But sometimes I'm fortunate enough to get invited somewhere, and maybe I'm doing a feature story, and I'll get to go out somewhere and take some interesting shots. A year or so ago, the biology department invited me to their biology lab out by Lake Columbia. And I was fortunate enough to be out there with some kindergarten students and some SAU students helping them. And we got some real good pictures with the students interacting, and they worked out real well. The thing about a camera, though, whenever you carry that camera somewhere, you've got an automatic ticket to get it wherever you want to go. So a lot of times I'll just carry the camera and hope that something's going on, and maybe take a picture, maybe find a free lunch. You never know.
Well, whatever works. A lot of people don't know exactly what the Communication Center does, and we're glad you could be on the show to sort of, air it out, I suppose, to advertise.
Well, we appreciate the opportunity. I would like to also say that Cindy Young is in charge of our copy center, and Brian Alexis is our graphic artist and in charge of our publications, and then Mark is in charge of our media relations. So we appreciate the opportunity to be here today, and hope you'll invite us back again.
Oh, well, we will. Okay, well, that's it for us today. Our guests today have been Mark Trout and Judy Post of the Communication Center. I'm Shannon Watson.
And I'm Jeff Grissom.
And we'll see you later.
The SAU Report is a production of broadcast journalism students in the Department of Theater and Mass Communication at Southern Arkansas University in Magnolia.